A while ago, I had to shift back to my hometown because of work. My parents insisted that I live in their old house because my father had a lot of stuff that he didn't want to move. It had only been a few weeks since they bought a new house and moved there. I was okay with that sort of arrangement because it meant that I didn't have to put in any extra effort. The house was already well furnished and all the basic amenities were present. I didn't have to stay in my hometown for a long time, so there wasn't much to shop for. So, I moved back and got everything in order. Things were going fine. I noticed that there was a new family living next door. They seemed nice. There was a wife, a husband, and two little kids. I thought of saying hi, but it seemed troublesome, and I'm a little socially distant, so I chose not to. One day, I was going out when I spotted the couple outside their house arguing about something. They saw me and waved hi. I waved back. No harm in just saying hi to your neighbor, right? And that's where I was mistaken. Anyway, they started walking towards me, and I didn't know what to do. They must be in their 40s, and I was only 24 back then. I never had good conversations with people who were much older than me. The woman shook my hand and welcomed me to the neighborhood. They started asking where I was from, why I moved, and what my job was. So I answered it, and the husband sarcastically said, "Wow, an e-commerce marketing director. What does it mean?" I explained to them, and the wife chuckled and said that it was hard to keep up with all the new things. I said nothing, but offered a half-hearted smile. Then they started telling me how the wife, let's call her Karen, was a housewife, and her husband, let's call him Carl, was a builder contractor. I didn't know what to say, so I just simply nodded. The husband asked, "How much do you make? I mean, the internet thing. Does it even pay?" I smiled and replied that my income was a little over $250,000. The man and woman kept looking at each other. Their faces were tense, and Carl had a face that said he wished I was joking. "That much, huh? That's a lot. And you are so young, too." I could easily say that they weren't just impressed, but also jealous. They made a sullen face. Carl kept asking if I was seriously making that much money. I nodded politely and told them that it was getting late. A few days later, every time I saw Carl, he'd be overly friendly and ask how I was doing on the job. At first, I thought it was genuine interest, but he kept making sarcastic remarks and giving backhanded compliments. In simple words, he was being really rude and patronizing, and I knew if I called him out, he would pretend that it wasn't his intention. I didn't want to play his childish games. I tried to ignore the couple as much as I could. Karen showed up unannounced in my house once and asked me if I was dating someone. I was quiet because I didn't want her opinion. Still, she sarcastically smiled and jokingly said that it would be hard for me to find a partner if I keep making that much money. I knew a lot of people who made way more than me, but I had never been this creepy to anyone. I ignored her childish rambling, and she advised me to start getting ready to settle and be a housewife like her. I didn't know why they kept doing that. I was so frustrated and fed up with them that I showed Karen the door and told her that she can't come unannounced anymore. One day, I was in my house when I heard a loud bam. Suddenly, something shattered, probably glass. I could hear a child crying in the distance. I ignored it at first, but then I questioned what if the child was alone. It was highly unlikely, but still possible. I quickly grabbed my coat and ran towards the neighbor's house. The window pane of their hall was broken. I asked if anyone was there, but there was no reply. I went back to my house. After a few minutes, I saw Karen coming out of her house. That meant she was in there, but she chose not to reply. The next day, I was sitting in my garden when I saw Karen trespassing. She was being really sneaky. I knew she couldn't see me, so I observed her as I drank my tea. She was snooping and peeking through the windows. One of the windows in the hall was half opened. She peeked inside, then put her hand in and tried to grab something. I stood behind her and cleared my throat loudly. She panicked so hard that she fell to the ground. "What's up? What are you doing? And what were you trying to steal?" I asked. I didn't have the energy to say anything else, so I waited for her to reply. But she kept glaring at me. She stood up and then gave a smug smile. I knew she was going to say something nonsensical, And she did. She extended her hand and sternly said, "Pay me for my broken glass window." What glass window? I thought to myself. Then I remembered the incident that happened the day before. Why should I have to pay you? I asked, and she said that she witnessed me trespassing in her property and breaking my glass window. I told her that I didn't break it. Rather, I heard a loud shattering of a window and quickly checked if her children got hurt. But she kept saying over and over again that she saw me breaking her glass window. Okay, when? When did you see it? Because I called you after looking at the window and I knew you were inside, but you didn't reply. I saw you coming out of your house just a few minutes later, okay? She panicked for a moment and then said, "Because you broke it, I was so afraid that I hid myself with my babies. Nobody wants to be around a violent person." This can't be happening, I thought in my head. I knew they were a little crazy, but this was just insane. I told her that I wasn't paying for anything at all. There was no way I was responsible for breaking her window. She, on the other hand, was trespassing on my property and trying to steal from my property or touch something without permission. She began crying, and Carl, the husband, came to her rescue. He demanded that if I didn't pay them the money, he would have me evicted. I understood that they were just some old people bullying a young girl because they couldn't handle that the girl was making way more money than them. They were being plainly mean and crappy for no reason. I told them for the last time that if they didn't remove themselves from my property and kept making bizarre demands, I would have to take action. The lady panicked a little, then said, "Don't you think you should pay? You have so much money, so why can't you pay for the broken window? We already have 2 kids. It's not fair that we should have to pay for it." She really said all that. So entitled, I thought in my head. You shouldn't have birthed 2 children then. If money was an issue, you shouldn't have thought about kids at all. Right now, you are just bullying me because you don't want to repair your own window. Too bad. Not my window, not my problem. The man grabbed my arm and warned me that he was going to throw me out of the house. "We won't. You pay for it. I am sure you were just lying about all that money, huh? Anyway, we saw you in front of our window when the glass was broken. It was indeed you." Money again? I made a promise to myself that I would never disclose my salary to anyone ever again. He began boasting about how he knew the landlord very well and how there was no chance the landlord would favor anyone but him. I smiled and called my father. I told him to immediately come if he was free. It was a Sunday morning, so I knew I wasn't disturbing him. My father came in the next 10 minutes and parked his car in my driveway. Then he walked towards us, and I saw Karen and Carl grinning ear to ear as if they were 100% sure they were going to get me evicted. "What's happening?" my father asked. The couple began lying and blaming me for breaking their window and not paying up. The woman even added that I told her to kill her children, which I obviously didn't. She twisted my words and thought of using them to her advantage. It wouldn't work though. My father knew very well the kind of person I was, so I wasn't even a little bit worried. Father paused for a second and asked me to give my side of the story. I explained in incredible detail how they kept making me uncomfortable by asking about my income and all the incidents that followed since we met. How they had no respect for my personal space, how they came in without notifying, how Karen trespassed and touched my belongings, how the man threatened me, and of course the window incident. I told him how obsessed Carl had been with my money since he had learned my salary. How he made me uncomfortable with his remarks and his faint praise. The couple shot daggers at me. I kept revealing the whole story. They tried to cut me in between, but each time they did, my dad asked them to be quiet. When I finally told the entire thing, my father looked at the neighbors and said, "We have CCTV. Perhaps we should check it, just to be sure, you know? I'm guessing it will be alright with you since you guys are insisting that she is lying." Karen snapped and said, "Why are you saying it like that? Your tone suggests that we are lying. Why are you taking her side? Is that because she rented a bigger house so she pays you more than us?" I smiled. My father patted my head and replied, "Because she's my daughter. I know her very well. What you are saying doesn't sound like my daughter at all." The couple's eyes grew wide, their mouths agape, processing what just happened. Neither of them said anything anymore. My father scolded them and told them that he would send an eviction notice if he found the neighbors bullying me again. Not only that, what they did was trespassing and touching my belongings without consent, for which they can easily be arrested. Carl started fidgeting and Karen was sweating heavily. They begged my father not to do anything and pleaded with me to forgive them. I asked them to never bother me again, and they never said another hi again. About 6 years ago, I decided to buy myself a sturdy watch for my birthday, which is after Christmas. Yes, I'm an after Christmas afterthought. Yes, I always got one present for Christmas and my birthday, and that sucked. Anyway, I did my research and decided on a G-Shock watch. I wanted it in olive drab green, as I had been in the Army for a long time and was a proud disabled Army veteran. Unfortunately, the only Macy's that had the color in stock was at a huge shopping mall that people in my area nicknamed Huge Dale. I called the store and told them to hold it for me and I would come and pick it up. So, without much trepidation, I packed my PTSD service dog and my rollator and headed to the Macy's at Huge Dale. I suffer from depression, PTSD, and social anxiety disorder, and that's why I have a service dog. My PTSD service dog, QB, wears a vest that has PTSD service dog on it in large reflective letters. She was wearing her vest. She always wears it when we go out, even though by law it's not necessary. So I entered Macy's and noticed that the sales clerk by watches and fine jewelry was busy. So we decided to look around while waiting for her to be free, so we could pick up the watch. All of a sudden, I hear a wild banshee shriek near me in some foreign language that I didn't understand. There she was, a wild Karen, in an abaya and headscarf, gesturing at my dog and screaming. I'm like, what the heck? The only English Karen said was unclean, kill it, and she continued to scream. Then she tried to hit my dog. I backed away from her quickly so that she wasn't able to hit QB. I don't know if the jewelry sales clerk hit a panic button, but a whole lot of store people converged on us. The lady's husband came too. The husband, Kevin, began to yell too. He had their 2 kids with them, a boy and a girl. The little girl was also in an abaya and headscarf. A sales clerk who spoke their language tried to find out why they were upset and tried to explain that my dog was a service dog and could be in the store. According to their religion, dogs were unclean and couldn't be in stores, and they thought my dog should be killed. Now, it takes a long time and over $10,000 to train a PTSD service dog. But because I'm a disabled Army veteran, I didn't have to pay for the training. Under the ADA Act, QB had the right to be with me while I shop. That's part of her job. Karen and Kevin continued to scream and yell and make a scene. Kevin tried to come towards us and hit my dog and was held back by security. By this time, I was very upset, shaking and crying. 2 female Macy's employees just guided me gently and escorted me to a nice private lounge where they got me some bottled water for me and QB. They let me cry and calm down. After I had bawled my eyes out and calmed down with QB's help and the Macy's employees' help, I returned to the watch and fine jewelry area. There was a gentleman in a nice suit who introduced himself as the store manager. He apologized profusely for the incident. I asked him what happened to Karen and Kevin, and he said that the police were called because they had caused such a disturbance, and they were banned from shopping at any Macy's store. He also said that he closed down their Macy's credit card account. The store manager gave me a discount on the G-Shock watch and a gift card. I now shop online at Macy's since the incident. I suppose that I could have gotten Karen and Kevin's names from the police and filed a civil lawsuit, but I never did. It took me quite a few weeks and a lot of therapy to get over this incident, but I still wear the watch daily and love it. It just goes to show you that the Karens and Kevins come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, race and religion, etc. Wow. This happened many years ago during a very busy holiday season. My brother was handicapped and confined to a wheelchair because of a car accident. Mom has a large handicap van that unloads on the passenger side, so we always try to park in the first spot so we can unload him kinda in traffic as places didn't always make the handicap spots large enough. Anyway, we decided to head to the local mall to shop for the day and circled the mall for about 45 minutes looking for a spot to park. We finally find one that fits exactly what we need and start heading that way. As we are almost there, a guy parks in the spot and starts heading into the mall just as we get there. I roll my window down and also noticed he wasn't handicapped or had any stickers or placards. I asked him if he would move since he didn't need that spot and was told to F off, that he was only going to be a few minutes, that he took off into the mall. I decided to park behind him, and since he pulled right up to the handicap post, there was no way he was getting out. We unload my brother and start heading into the mall when the guy starts coming out, sees our van parked behind him, noticing he can't get out. He starts demanding that I move the van, and I return the F off comment that he gave me earlier. Then he tells me he will call the police if I don't move. I tell him to go ahead. While he's on the phone with the police, mall security stops by to help out. I tell them my side of the encounter, and they then get the other guy's story. During this time, the local police show up. Mall security then asks if I would be nice and allow the guy to pull out so I could have his spot. I kind of let them know that had he been a bit nicer at the beginning, I might have considered it, but since he was a total jerk, I wasn't going to. The local police were busy writing up the ticket for parking illegally in a handicapped space. Mall security and local police chat a few minutes and both came over to me to see if I would move the van again. I let them know that I would not because the guy was such a jerk to us. To my surprise, both mall security and local police just smiled and told us to have a good day shopping. We were inside the mall for a good 6 hours, and when we came back out, the guy was nowhere to be found, but his car was still there with another ticket on his window. LOL. There is a special place in hell for people who take spots away from people who actually and legally need them. Good for you. Hope his car got that boot for all the tickets. I don't understand people who do this. I've pulled into a handicapped parking spot to allow out a person who is disabled but didn't drive. The doctor's office asked me to do it this way so they wouldn't have to walk farther. And I always feel like a criminal. Like a cop is going to swoop in from nowhere to ticket me for the minute I'm parked there, even with the other handicap spots open. Why take on the stress and potential ticket for no reason at all?